Okay, I think now it's time to start the seminar today. First of all, I'm very pleased to receive the kindness of this arrangement from Dr. Banja. So on behalf of the Polymer Society Rubber Division and the Chemical Innovation, so we decided to have this Saturday seminar on the occasion that Professor Dr. Volker Abetz visiting us. And actually, his 5 days packed of several seminars and a group meeting. So I also would like to express my appreciation to Dr. Volker too. Let me introduce background of Professor Dr. Volker Abetz a bit. Actually, he's now being the director of the Institute of Polymer Research at the Helmholtz Zentrum G-Star Institute of Membrane Research. So his main career is about making copolymer and develop membranes or those porous materials. And he's also being the full professor for physical chemistry at the University of Hamburg. So actually, I met him several times in conferences, so we became friends. And there are 2 times that coincidentally, when I sent one of my previous students several years ago, about maybe 15 years ago, and she's been to G-Star, the Helmholtz Zentrum G-Star. And over there, the big boss was Dr. Volker Abetz. So that's the first impression when I know that, oh, I sent my student to a lab that belonged to this G-Star Institute, we call Helmholtz Zentrum. The second time is when one of my students, she's Dr. Pipat, who's sitting there, his daughter, want to go abroad, to go to Germany for further her PhD. And her nickname is Nampan Sirapat. She asked me whether where she could apply, and then I introduced her some places. But in the sudden, one of the emails that I received from Professor Dr. Volker is that I got an application from Miss Sirapat, and she said, and I saw your name as an advisor. So I said, yes, that's my student, so please accept her. And then that's the story starts. So we start to have the email back and forth. And I invited him to be here with expectation that the situation of pandemic is getting better. And luckily, that's getting better. But you can imagine how hard time he has when he started applying Thailand Pass to Thailand. Well, in Thai, we know that starting from 1st November, but the application form also starts from 1st November. So how come you can come here 1st November? Because you need to apply that 7 days before. So, well, those very multi-steps and very difficult process that Dr. Volker Abetz has been done to come here. So with that point, that's the Thailand Pass QR code. So with that, I think today is very special for us and for me too. So I'd like to invite Professor Dr. Volker Abetz to have a special talk on the title of Stimuli-responsive homo and copolymers with a Lcst lower critical solution temperature and UCST upper critical solution temperature in water-based solutions. So please join me, the online and on-site guests. Please join me. Welcome, Professor Dr. Volker Abetz.
Yeah, from Punjab. For the kind invitation, and thank you very much for inviting me here to you, Suwabun and Dr. Banja. So I'm very happy to be here today and first time giving a lecture like this. So, but because yesterday we could be without, but here we are many people, so I follow the rules, of course. So, yeah, let me see if that works. No, I have to do like.
We do not mind if you take out the plan.
Because we protect ourselves already.
And actually, all audience already have 2 vaccinations.
I have 2 vaccinations, and I have negative PCR tests from from yesterday or the day before yesterday.
Yes.
So
I think it should be all right if you take out.
okay, because this is a rather dense one.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a 3-layer mask, and it's a little bit exhausting when you talk, and
Yeah, right.
sometimes you need oxygen. So okay, good, thank you. Okay, yeah, the today lecture is about stimuli-responsive polymers and copolymers, and I divided the lecture in different parts, which are shown here. So we are interested in stimuli-responsive materials. I didn't show anything about the motivation why we are doing that, but I just say, as it was mentioned, we are working in a membrane institute, and former it was Institute of Polymer Research. Now, since this year, we are Institute of Membrane Research. We were Helmut Center Gestacht. Now we are Helmut Center Hereon. It's an artificial word, too complicated to explain what it should mean. Anyway, yeah, we talked about marketing and how to sell things anyway. But what we do is still the same. So the names come and go, but our science more or less is continuous. It's not always the same. Hopefully we have some progress, but I mean, we are going our way, of course. And yeah, so in the membrane area, we are also interested in yeah, more advanced membranes where you can switch or adjust the properties during operation. So, and that's why eventually if stimuli-responsive polymers become of interest, because changing the conditions, they change the conformation, and by changing conformation, they might change the selectivity and permeability for substances. So this is somehow the background, one of the backgrounds. Another background is that we want to go for stimuli-responsive nanomaterials. I'm not talking about that today. We are not so far with the results, but the idea is to adjust the distance, the spatial distance between nanoparticles, and influence plasmonic or spectroscopic response to light, and to make sensors and things like that. Okay, so let me start. So the whole thing started actually quite a few years ago with Steffen Eggers, who came from Göttingen, from a famous group who is very advanced in raft polymerization, so Philipp Warner in Göttingen. And once, it was also a phone call I got at that time that I was asked, can I send a student? I want to keep him, but he wants to leave and wants to study at least a PhD in another city. And I said, okay. And that was the best decision I did at that time, because with Steffen, we got familiar with raft polymerizations. Up to that point, I was more an anionic guy, and now anionic is past. So raft is yeah, much nicer in many aspects. So, and this monomer, this N-morpholinomethyl metacrylate, is an interesting yeah, monomer which shows stimuli-responsive properties when you use it as a polymer. And you see here just solution and different conditions. So we have different pH values, and we have, in one case, without the salt, and in another case, we add a sodium sulfate in a certain concentration, and you just see that the transparency of the solution is somehow affected depending on the conditions you use. So that this seems to be somehow stimuli responsive, and what a lot of studies were carried out, but I keep the story a bit short here. Stefan then was interested in this salt influence on the solubility of the polymer. This polymer shows a lower critical solution temperature in water. And depending on the type of salt which you add, and especially the type of anion of the salt which you add, influences the position of this cloud point or lower critical solution temperature, which is of course just a particular point in the phase diagram, and more correctly we should say the cloud point, but sometimes this nomenclature is a little bit mixed up, but we talk about the point where you go from a transparent solution to a phase separated turbid solution. And there are two sorts of salts. There are the so-called cosmotropic salts and the chaotropic salts. So the cosmotropic salts, they lead to more order in a sense that you can say a phase separated structure has less entropy in total compared to a homogeneous solution. So you introduce order by the so-called salting out effect. That means the presence of the salt makes the solvent, the salt solvent, less nice, less friendly to the polymer, and the polymer starts to precipitate at a lower temperature already when you heat up the solution, because the phase separation occurs at the high temperature in these systems. Now, the situation is different for the chaotropic salts. There, the salts help the polymer to stay in solution, even at temperatures which are above the lower critical solution temperature in pure water. And that's what you see here on the right-hand side in this slide. And so I just have to move the people, because on the monitor I see the people where I want to see the diagram. Here you see in the lower case the cosmotropic salts, and in the upper diagram the chaotropic salts, and you see that there is a linear dependence of the concentration, of the salt concentration, of the drop of the Lcst, of the cloud point. And for strong cosmotropic salts, you have a strong depression of the cloud point. And in the case of the chaotropic salts, you see not a linear behavior, but you see kind of a behavior what is looking like a Langmuir isotherm. And so that means probably you can imagine that the salts somehow are attached and cover somehow the surface, whatever that is, of the polymer, and somehow help the polymer to stay dissolved. And chloride and bromide, they are here circled because they are the border between the salting out and the salting in effect. And now we will come back to this later. Then the next point was that we wanted to have the blocker polymers. So Stefan also knew that I'm a blocker polymer guy. So okay, let's do blocker polymers. And at that time, with the rough polymerization, we were not so advanced. And styrene, which is here the red block, is not so easy to be polymerized by rough polymerization when you want to go to high molecular weight. Rough has often the disadvantage that it's difficult to achieve really high molecular weight. That means something in the range of 100 kilodalton. Yeah? So that is difficult, or was difficult. But anionic polymerization, that's simple. So the idea was we use anionic polymerization to generate polystyrene. We end functionalize this polystyrene with an OH group, and then we connect it with a raft agent, and then we do the raft polymerization of the second block. So it's a combination of anionic and raft polymerization, and this was done very successfully. So from a certain batch of polystyrene, different lengths of the second block, this N-morpholino ethyl methacrylate was polymerized, and Stefan achieved here different structures. So this is just the chemistry. I'm not sure if I should spend a lot of time on chemistry. Otherwise, I go a little bit faster. I don't know what the interest is.
You can go ahead with the chemistry.
Huh?
Yeah, most of us are chemists.
So you know this.
No, just go ahead.
Okay, so, all right. So you have first the anionic polymerization in THF of styrene at low temperature. Then you add this propylene oxide to N-functionalize your polystyrene with the OH group. And actually, we had a hard time first to understand certain NMR peaks, but it turned out this is the proton here because we have here kind of a stereo center and two different magnetic environments of this hydrogen. So, and then you add the raft agent by a static esterification, basically. And okay, and that's the last step. You polymerize your methacrylic amide, methacrylic monomer as a second block. And the conversion you can follow by NMR, and you see in the GPC also that you get an increase in molecular weight and keep quite nice control. Yeah, and the typical color of this raft stuff is this such pink color in this case. And so this is a simplified phase diagram of a dipole copolymer, very roughly drawn, and the circles show the different polymers which were synthesized, and the colors somehow correspond nicely to the expected morphologies. Also the scattering in small angle X-ray confirm these results. So here it's maybe more simple, an AFM images of different structures. So we get lamella, cylinders, and spheres. So everything is okay. Concerning the nomenclature, I should mention that these lowercase numbers indicate the weight percentage of a respective block, and this uppercase number at the end is the total molecular weight in kilodalton. So it's a simple non-UPAC nomenclature. Yeah, then this polymer, so one example is shown here, was dissolved in THF and then diluted into water down to a concentration, so by a factor of 100. So from 1% in THF to 0.01% in this THF water mixture. Basically, it's water. So there's very little THF anymore due to this dilution. And you get an aggregation into micellar structures. And you can observe them also in cryo-TM. And so this somehow works. Now, when we'll do dynamic light scattering and study the size of these micelles in solution, here you see something interesting, because what is plotted here is the hydrodynamic radius as a function of the amount of the hydrophilic block, the stimuli-responsive hydrophilic block. And we're larger, and the polystyrene is always the same. So we keep polystyrene similar and just increase the length of this hydrophilic block. And what you see, the longer the block, the smaller is the hydrodynamic radius. This on first you would expect the different. Longer chain means larger structure, but you see the opposite. And the interpretation is that when you have this block of polymer dissolved in THF, it's completely dissolved, and then you put it into the water. Now you get the aggregation. Since for the polymers having the larger polymer block, they require more space. These polymer blocks are nicely dissolved in water, so they are very expanded. Due to that, there is not so much space in the core. So you have to have a stronger curvature of the core in order to generate more space in the corona for the individual polymer block. And that means the aggregation number is getting less if you have the larger water-soluble block. And in total, it means that the whole thing becomes smaller. Yeah, because it's less chains which are forming one aggregate, one micelle. And also interesting was to observe that there's an aging effect. So here you see for the different lengths of the polymer blocks at 4 degrees centigrade that we don't see any effect of time on the hydrodynamic radius, but when we have a slightly higher temperature, so more mobility, so to say, of chains, then you see that we get a certain increase of the aggregation size, and that again tells us that the whole thing is by no means really easily in equilibrium, but there's also still something going on, some reorganization of micelles and change in the aggregation numbers. Okay, here are just is a temperature ramp of DLS. So we see here the analysis of the hydrodynamic radius as a function of temperature, and at different temperatures. And you see also the glass tubes with a solution, a micellar solution at low temperature or at room temperature, and then at higher temperature above the Lcst of the, or above the cloud point of the corona block. These micelles aggregate together, and at slightly higher temperatures, the aggregates more aggregate together, and you get really a precipitation in your glass tube. Obviously, we have more than one transition. We have saw just now two kind of cloud points, and these cloud points increase with the amount of the hydrophilic block. Both cloud points increase, and the whole system is pH sensitive, what I showed you on the first slide as well. And this is a rather complicated image. You have here the hydrodynamic radius as a function of pH. So at a high pH, we have a low hydrodynamic radius because the N-morpholino ethyl methacrylate is neutral. Now, when you decrease the pH at some point, it's getting protonated, it becomes polyelectrolyte and expands. And due to that, you get an increase in the hydrodynamic radius, and you have a coagulation part here in the gray area, which is funny, and we don't know exactly what happens there. My feeling is, but I may be wrong, that we have kind of a aggregation because of an unequal, how to say, or coagulation and precipitation, because we have unequal distribution of maybe protonation. Different chains are differently strong protonated, and we get some segregation between two dissimilar sort of chains. But this is something we don't really know. It's speculation. So, okay. Now come back to the Hofmeister series, and I have indicated before that chloride and bromide are somehow at the borderline between cosmotropic and chaotropic salts. And in this block of polymer micelles, we observe two cloud points, or two type of transitions. Here you see this cloud point 1, and the world is somehow still okay here. In this case, sodium chloride, so sodium is not important, the cation has not a big influence, the choice of cation, but the anion is important. The chloride somehow shows this normal cosmotropic effect, the linear decrease of the cloud point with increasing salt concentration, and the more Langmuir type shape you see in the case of the bromide, which is chaotropic. Now, when we go to the second cloud point, all of a sudden, also the chloride becomes chaotropic, has a chaotropic effect. So chloride for cloud point 1 is cosmotropic, chloride for cloud point 2 is chaotropic in this system. And here's just a cartoon how one can try to picture that. So you see here two sorts of chloride besides the green block of polymer micelles or aggregates. So the red one is the hydrated chloride, and the yellow one is the chloride which is adsorbed to this micelle. And below cloud point 1, we have basically the chloride as a free chloride, and just a few are maybe attached to the to the block copolymer micelle, but here between cloud point 1 and cloud point 2, we have a stronger adsorption of chlorides to this micelle, and that leads to this salting in effect. So this is like what I said before, like a Langmuir isotherm, because you have the surface of this green ball or this green aggregate, and you cover the surface with this chloride, and that means you have a certain surface occupation density of chloride, and it can be eventually saturated, and that's why you get also this flattening of the curve here on the left-hand side. So there is a certain saturation of, and then the surface of the globules is covered completely, and you have no further effect when you add even more of the salt. Okay, so this was the anionic part. So we started with the polystyrene, and growing from the anionic polymerized polystyrene, we grew several amounts of the second block. But there was still the dream to get rid of anionic, and there was a good reason for that. We had an accident in the lab, a THF distill changed the shape of part of the building. It exploded. Fortunately, nobody injured, but it was really a big bang in the truest sense of the word. And I got really nervous, and my students also were not so happy with anionic anymore. And the aim was, the strong motivation was, get rid of anionic, and we must find a way to get this polystyrene polymerized, also not with anionic, but with raft. And here you see Stefan's work, initial work in this direction. I'm not showing much about it because this is also a nice story here and has a good continuation. Styrene is a difficult monomer, and raft polymerization has also its difficulties. So everything here is thermally initiated raft. So we use an ASO initiator, whatever it is exactly, but it's an ASO initiator, and it's thermally cleaved, so to generate the radicals. And this requires temperature, obviously, higher temperature. And the problem now with these stimuli-responsive blocks is, in principle, that they are non-soluble at a high temperature because they are Lcst systems. And the idea was, we start not with the styrene, which is a difficult monomer, but we start with this second block, so to say. The former second block in the combined polymerization strategy is now the first block in a pure raft strategy. And here you see a few guys. On the left-hand side, you see this polyacryloyl pyrrolidine, so difficult name, so we call it PAPY. And the other one with the 6-membered ring, you see here, the yellow. This is the N-acryloyl piperidine. So to make life easy, one is PAPY and the other one is PAPY. So, and they are just different by one CH2 group in the ring. However, that has an effect. The cloud point of the Lcst of the corresponding homopolymers is quite different. So in the first case with the 5-membered rings, we have an Lcst around 50 degrees centigrade. And in the other case with the 6-membered rings, we are very close to the freezing point of water, around 3 degrees centigrade. So that gives us a huge range. And of course, and I will come back to that, we can adjust by co-polymerization of these two different monomers. We can adjust the Lcst, but that comes in a minute. Here, I just want to stress another point. So the Lcst, even the highest Lcst we have here with 47 degrees, is still too low to carry out the thermally initiated raft polymerization. So when we want to polymerize such a monomer in water, the polymer will precipitate, and we go to a higher temperature. That's why Stefan said, okay, I can't do the green chemistry. I can't do it just in water. However, I can also avoid to use too much of organic solvent. So he added a little bit of dioxide. So, and here what you see are cloud points of this PAPU, so this guy with a cloud point around 47 degrees in pure water. When you add now dioxane, this Lcst is increasing. And here in the green area, that is a temperature range above 70 degrees, where we are now in the dissolved state. That means in that water dioxane mixture, we can polymerize this monomer and get a homopolymer in this solution. And then we can add styrene, and depending on what we do exactly, we end up with styrene emulsion polymerization, because in this dioxane water mixture, styrene is also not really soluble and it forms the droplets. These are these big red balls, which you see here. And now, depending on whether you just use this PAPU, you get, when you start polymerization in this water-based solution of styrene, at some point you form the micelles and you get the emulsion polymerization. And when you make such a, here yellow, a copolymer with a lower Lcst, then also lower solubility, then you actually first generate this sort of micelle, where we have a PAPU, and then the copolymer of AP and RP, which is the yellow one, and then as a third component, polystyrene is formed here in the core of this yellow ball. So, but this is just a nice detail, and in this way, actually, you can really get large polymer chains for polystyrene as well. So this works, but still suffers from the problem that we still have dioxane in the system. So next generation of student, Felix Laudabach, now working at BASF, and Steffen went to Conti, so he's now doing rubbers, and Felix is doing something else at BASF. He just started there. And Felix became interested in microfluidics. And so what he did is he used the monomer, here our PAPU, and made a bulk polymerization in a microfluidic device using photoinitiation now. And the nice thing with photoinitiation is, and he knew that because he started his work on polystyrene in such a microfluidic device and got styrene and even isoprene polymerized in a reasonable time, and he could make blocker polymers of those. He gets a homopolymer of this PAPU without water, and then he puts that into a water suspension of styrene droplets and is doing the photopolymerization in terms of the PISA process, and generates here these wonderful micelles just with water as a solvent, if at all. So because the first work was in bulk and the second was in a water emulsion. And this is a stimuli-responsive system he generated, and he was playing with a type of a raft agent he used actually, and depending on the hydrophilicity, hydrophobicity of this group here, the Z group, and the hydrophilicity of the R group, you can adjust the cloud point. So the more hydrophobic, the lower the cloud point, basically what you observe from the dynamic light scattering when you look at the hydrodynamic radius. And it's reversible sometimes with the hysteresis, but it's basically reversible. You can aggregate and deaggregate, or you can say you get not aggregate, but you get maybe also swelling and deswelling. And here, these are just TM images showing that these micelles are pretty well controlled. And the nice thing is shown here, actually, where we have a fully reversible swelling and deswelling of the corona chains. And you can heat the system, then they shrink because they are less soluble at a higher temperature. And then you can cool and they expand again. And so the whole thing is with the temperature somehow breathing. So this is the reversible down and up curve here, what you see here for the hydrodynamic radius. And Felix did not observe irreversible aggregation in these systems. Okay, let me come to the next part about random and block random copolymers with a Lcst. And here these two guys I introduced before, these Papi or Papi and Papi, with a very different cloud points by themselves. And now when you combine the two monomers on a molar ratio, so this is a molar mole fraction axis, what you show here, you can linearly calculate the cloud point of the resulting polymer. And the molecular weight dependence is very weak. So just to also add that, molecular weight is not having a big influence. So basically a linear, nice behavior. And we get also very nice random copolymerization. So the copolymerization parameters are basically one for both systems. So it's very, very easy. And this polymer caused still some trouble and was interesting. And I show you a few things here. This is a plot where we added different alcohols to our water. So the water now is contaminated, if you like, with different alcohols. And what is plotted here on the y-axis is the difference in the cloud point. So the delta cloud point temperature, meaning the deviation from the cloud point of the polymer itself in the water, in the pure water. And now what you see here is that for certain alcohols, you get immediately a drop of the cloud point. So meaning that adding alcohol is not good for the solubility of the polymer. It precipitates. But if you look at methanol and ethanol, first you see a slight increase of the cloud point, and then again a slight decrease with higher alcohol concentration. And at high alcohol concentrations, actually you see an increase of the cloud point. All of a sudden, the world changes, and what was bad before, all of a sudden becomes good. So that's why I call also these polymers, they are in a drunken state. So they somehow, and it's alcohol obviously, so they behave a little bit funny. And what is the reason? So the reason is we think that we have different situations with the different alcohols when it comes to hydrophobic or hydrophilic interaction with the polymer. The polymer is here, and this is artwork. This droplet is basically the polymer. So it's really, Stefan was an artist also a little bit. And the red part of it is the hydrophobic part, and the blue part is the hydrophilic part. So this is how you should understand this droplet. And then you see the alcohols, in this case, propanol, which with the OH group interacts with the hydrophilic part of the polymer, and the hydrophobic part is towards the water, which is not good. And at a certain concentration of alcohol, this configuration of this this type of association seems to be dominant, and that gives you the minimum here in the cloud point. Now, when you increase the amount of alcohol, there is so much alcohol that alcohol can maybe form a double layer. That is what you see here. So again, a hydrophilic group is towards the outside. And that means now the polymer with this double layer of alcohol, where now the hydrophobic part of the alcohol is somehow taken care of by the alcohol itself, the whole thing becomes better soluble. And that's why the Lcst or the cloud point is increasing. Okay, and we have here for methanol and ethanol, we have here situation where we find a certain maximum in the solubility, so some improvement, and that is shown here. So this slight hydrophobicity of the polymer can nicely interact with ethanol or methanol, and then you have here again also a hydrophilic, let's say, situation on the former hydrophobic part of the polymer. Okay, and now depending on the composition of the copolymer, you have more or less pronounced these effects. And what you see here is the hydrophobicity of the copolymer is increasing from the bottom to the top. This is just because the PAP component, sorry, the PAP component, so the more hydrophobic one in the copolymer is increased. So in the top, you have the highest amount of RP of the 6-membered ring, and in the lowest, you have the highest amount of the 5-membered ring, which is better soluble. So these effects are nicely, following this idea of what I just presented to you. You can play with the structure of the alcohol. So here you see just propanol, so to say. So single functional propanol, so N-propanol, propan-1-ol, propan-2-ol, and we have also the difunctional propanol, so propan-1,2-diols or propan-1,3-diols, and depending on how these structures look like, you get a quite strong effect on this co-non-solvency effect here. Okay, and yeah, so I think this is just an example here of this propan-1,3-diol and propan-1,2-diols, which behave quite different here in terms of the solubility. Okay, and I should add that all these alcohols are good solvents basically for our polymer, as water is, but just the combination of these two, water and alcohol, make it bad solvent. That's why the effect is also called the co-non-solvency effect. Yeah. Okay. So here, this is now the same random copolymer as a second block, and the first block is just a pure PAPU, meaning that we have a first block with a high LCST and the second block with an adjustable LCST between this high value of 47 degrees, basically, down to 3 degrees, depending on the composition of the two comonomers. And exactly that is what you then see in the dynamic light scattering. So when you have very high amount of the first component also in the second part, then basically you have just a large homopolymer, more or less. And you see one high LCST. And when you go down, when you increase the more hydrophobic comonomer, then you decrease this LCST and you get eventually 2 LCSTs when you have a nice separation between this random copolymer second block and the homopolymer first block. Then in this case, we see 2 transitions in this polymer. Okay, let me come to a comparison between random and gradient copolymers. And now we leave for a moment raft and go to ATRP, but I'm not talking about ATRP. It's just to be correct. And ATRP was something we also did before. And now most ATRP people in my team converted to raft. So this is, raft seems to be very nice. Okay, and in this work, we also have a completely different sort of monomer. These are monomers which are PEG-based, you can say. So polyethylene glycol or oligoethylene glycol is a side chain of a methacrylate. And here in this case, Mariam Bosok, who did that work in her PhD, she made copolymer of 2 different monomers, one having a diethylene glycol side group and another one which has an oligoethylene oxide side group. Oligo it's a distribution. Mainly these are 8 ethylene oxide units, but it can also be a little bit less and a little bit more. So it's industrial product. Okay. And so depending on the copolymerization of these two monomers, they are also nicely statistical copolymerization. You can adjust the Lcst at higher temperatures than what I have shown before. But what Maria was interested in is to study the effect now on the sequence along the chain. And so she did the random copolymerization, what you see here, just put the two monomers in the quantity what you want together and polymerize. So in this case, she used 80% of this methoxy ethylene oxide methacrylate and with the two ethylene oxide units and 20% of the oligo component. And independent of time in the polymer you take from your polymerization system, you always find the same composition, meaning that you have really a pure, perfect statistical random copolymerization. Now she wanted to make a gradient. And what she did, that was quite some experimental work. She used two syringes and simply adjusted the composition with time. So she increased one of the monomers as a function of time, basically. And by this, you somehow shift the actual composition of the monomer feed. And that means you change gradually the composition, which is generated in the growing polymer chain. So you can do that in a kind of a living polymerization only, like that. And it really works. You see here the conversion plots, where you see the composition as a function of time, which is gradually changing of the two monomers, and you generate exactly such a gradient copolymer. And now this gradient copolymer and the random copolymer were investigated, and they, in terms of their stimuli responsivity, and showed, slightly different behavior, obviously. So in the random copolymer, we more or less see one transition as usual. In the gradient copolymer, it's more maybe gradual change in the transition because you have less and more soluble parts, obviously, along the chain. So this is roughly what we expect. And she could also study the Hofmeister series. So this was very fashion in my group. So everybody was running for Hofmeister series and putting different salts, chorotropic, cosmotropic salts to see what happens. And actually, it's following the normal rules. We have the chorotropic and the cosmotropic behavior, just as I explained it before. No speciality here with the chloride, as I had indicated for this second cloud point in the blocker polymer, but this is just the absolute normal behavior, as we found it also for this PAPU and PAPI copolymers, or in the morpholino methyl ethyl ethacrylate polymer. Good. Time is almost up. Don't worry, these last chapters get shorter and shorter. No, short and a little bit longer, but this is just the fact of 2 or 3, and these are already the number of slides. So don't worry, don't fall asleep, please, during the last minute. So, because now we come to the upper critical solution temperature. So far, everything was lower critical solution temperature, and when it comes to upper critical solution temperature, life gets much more complicated. If you look into the literature to find upper critical solution temperature polymers in water, there's not so much. And the things which exist are also not so simple. And Tilman Eckert, he is my first UCST man, so to say, in the team. And he used also the photograph polymerization to synthesize methacrylamide. And somehow that works. This is nice. But what is not so nice, it shows an upper critical solution temperature. And what is not so nice is shown here on this plot, where you see 3 curves. And this is the same, let's say, it was the same original material. You heat it up, you cool it down, heat it up, cool it down, and always you see another transition. Why? The UCST is going up with the number of cycles. Sorry, the UCST is going down with the number of cycles. Why is that? Because our homopolymer becomes a random copolymer by hydrolysis of the amine group. It becomes carboxylic acid. Then a polymethacrylic acid doesn't have UCST, at least not that we can measure it. And so the whole thing becomes more and more soluble. And that is a pity, of course, because we don't have really a nice reversible behavior, reversible in the sense that our material is not destroyed. Here it is gradually also destroyed. Nevertheless, another student who came later, also again from Göttingen, so he was a successor of Steffen, so to say, also from Göttingen. And he also was a raftman by training there. And Xingkong Su then got the task, okay, let's combine Lcst and UCST. And that task he got before I knew from Tillmann that we have a problem with this UCST polymer. But Xingkong is also a very talented chemist, and he did the photograph polymerization. Now, first starting with his monomers from Mariam, which he used for her ATRP. He used those monomers, these are the yellow ones here, with raft. So no problem, he could do raft polymerization. And then in a second step, he rafted this methacrylamide. So he has an LCST system where he can adjust the LCST because it's a copolymer. And the second one is just a UCST homopolymer block. And what you get here, depending on now the composition, this is just the first block here, the random copolymer of these two ethylene glycol containing monomers, co-monomers. Depending on the composition, you can adjust here the LCST, so this is fine. And when you go for the block copolymer of one of these systems, or few of these systems, you can basically now see a UCST here at the lower temperature. You heat up, then the system becomes soluble. So the radius, hydrodynamic radius goes down. We get the unimers, we get the polymers dissolved completely. And when we increase further the temperature, we go into the LCST, and again, we get micellization. And depending now on the composition of the random copolymer block, the LCST can be adjusted. And so we can basically here switch also the hydrodynamic radius as a function of temperature, but now in two directions. At the low temperature, we get aggregation. At the high temperature, we get aggregation. And somewhere in between, we have a window of a nicely dissolved polymer. Now, actually, this concept we are now, and Xingkong is now further extending to graft copolymers and also networks. So this will be, this is unpublished work, it's ongoing. So he has some first hydrogels which are now double responsive and things like that. But that's not, that's not fully worked out yet. So too early to really present results on that. Yeah, and this is somehow the link already to my conclusions. And I hope I could convince you that with the controlled radical polymerizations, we can really play with many, many different sorts of monomers, also interesting monomers, stimuli-responsive systems. And we can go up to the way we can go all the way to, homo, block copolymers, but also networks, if we finally, in a controlled way, cross-link these systems. We have access to high molecular weight polystyrene. I was not stressing too much on that point, but we can make polystyrenes with molecular weights up to 300 kilogram per mole with a reasonable control using this sort of PISA process. And I showed you hopefully successfully that with this different salts, we can influence the solubility of some of the systems. I did not show, I showed you the alcohols, but I did not show you the soaps. So we also used soap molecules to influence the solubility. And yeah, so we have this responsivity, and what is ongoing work are the hydrogels, which I just mentioned. And now the very last slide, this somehow is a connection maybe to the next presentation, what we will have. And this is rubber, also obviously a nice network material, or you can generate it. Of course, you know all this. Vulcanized rubber. So I Googled for a picture of this rubber tree in Thailand. So they say this was somewhere in Thailand. So I thought I have to take a Thai rubber tree for this slide. And what you see is, of course, the sulfur crosslinking, which was by accident more or less invented by Charles Goodyear. And Charles Goodyear, he vulcanized rubber in a very, let's say, effective way, so effective that it was no more an elastomer, but it was a hard plastic or hard thermoset, so to say. And what you see here, actually, that's him. This is Charles Goodyear, made from vulcanized rubber. This thing is at my home because Charles Goodyear is my ancestor. Yeah. So this is a surprise, and my grandmother, she told me she would be happy also if I go maybe to macromolecular chemistry and somehow, you know. So somehow I ended up there, and actually this work we did together with a group in Aachen, Bernhard Blümich, who is interested and very much, he was working on rubbery materials, and he is an NMR guy. So he invented methods to investigate aging with NMR for technical applications, obviously. And so he used his NMR technique to investigate such type of rubbers. I have also a chain and other things. In the chain, there was a broken part. And my grandmother told me at that time, and that's now maybe 40 years ago, 30 years ago, you can also at some point take some of this chain, which is not so fancy maybe, and use it for maybe some investigation. So we didn't use the picture, of course. So we took another part and investigated aging. And we did more analysis. What you see here as a background of this cover page is a SEM elemental image. Clarissa, my wife, she took that. And actually it turned out that we missed something in it, what was in the recipe of Charles Goodyear. So Charles Goodyear was, like me, an entropy-driven man, obviously. So he wrote down things, but maybe what he did was not exactly that. And so we found out that this stuff was slightly different from the recipe that was patented. Yeah, and we also used a new rubber following the patent to study aging effects. So made the comparison in that work. So this is just a little bonbon at the very end of this lecture. And I want to not finish without thanking, of course, my nice co-workers, my students who did all this work, what I presented today. And thank you very much again for your kind attention.
Now it's time for the discussion from the floor and from the audience online. Oh, you need to go. Okay. ครับถ้ามีประเด็นที่อยากชวนคุย discuss หรือสอบถามนะครับจะเป็นภาษาอะไรก็ได้นะครับไม่ใช่นะภาษาไทยกับภาษาอังกฤษเท่านั้นภาษาอื่นผมอาจจะไม่รู้หรือเป็นภาษาเยอรมัน So thank you very much. It's very good, especially the final slide. It was so impressive because many people here are the rubber people, also from the online people too. Yeah. So if there's any question, So during the time, let me see the overview of your work. When you propose the Lcst or UCST, how can you link with the application? How can you guide the people that this kind of polymers are useful for applications? Do you have any examples to show us how we can apply this polymer for our, what you say, even future practical application?
Yeah, that's difficult.
Because when we submit the paper, the editor always asks, what is good for?
Yeah, okay. Actually, one membrane paper we published in 2013, 2014 in a quite nice journal, Advanced Functional Materials. And that was about double stimuli-responsive membrane. Actually, it was one slide I showed yesterday, I think. And there we have a membrane with a stimuli-responsive pore. Actually, it's double stimuli-responsive because it can respond to pH and to temperature. And you can play with both parameters and adjust the swelling of this respective, I would say, component. And by that, you adjust somehow the pore size. And of course, you adjust pore size and also the charge, in that case, of the pore pipe because of the pH. And so it's difficult to say, okay, this is the application for exactly this or that system. However, in general, to be more general, it can be useful for proteins. Proteins with a different isoelectric points. So depending on pH value of the protein, and also maybe the level of swelling of the pore forming block of such a membrane, certain proteins might pass through or not. And depending on how you exactly adjust the temperature, you can perhaps choose which protein can pass and which not. So in that sense, you can have a
membrane tunable selectivity.
Yeah, right. So we are thinking, or I'm thinking a little bit in this direction, although I don't know much about proteins, only that they are really a nightmare. Yeah.
And when you talk about the combination of the Lcst and UCST, so that we have the window of the solubility. So I'm not sure I catch all information from the slide, but how small the range that you achieved? From what temperature to what temperature that is soluble?
Yeah, it was around 10 degrees as a gap, so far. But again, this you can adjust. I mean, this is something. I think we can adjust that still, because the co-monomers we use for the Lcst block, this is just the set we use. But we could also think about using co-monomers which would lead to a lower Lcst, and by that we can maybe bring the Lcst further down. While the UCST with this system, we are rather fixed, so we cannot change much there, unless, and this is also what Xing is now working on, another less sensitive system, which is not so easy to hydrolyze. So this is something he's now working on, but UCST is really a nightmare. Also, if something is wrong with the water, some impurity or something, all of a sudden UCST is gone. So
it's quite
yeah,
sophisticated.
When in the past I thought Lcst is something what is a little bit counter-instructive, because normally you think entropy is increasing with higher temperature, and so. And then you learn, okay, entropy is decreasing with higher temperature because of this orientational entropy effects when you have absorbed water and things like that. And so, yeah, the orientational entropy which you gain when you take away the water from the molecule, make it insoluble, so I must say. And so this is more complex, but UCST is also more easy.
Complicated, yeah. The question online, yeah.
Oh,
the question from the online in the chat already.
ต้องใช้ differentiator Do you need to use photo initiator? That's the question from the online. In the initiating system step, do you need photo initiator in your polymerization process?
Yeah, we used in the last part. We used all this work. All this work is done with a photo initiator. Yeah. We started with thermally initiated raft, and there we had the problem with the Lcst, and we had to because we have to heat at a high temperature, and then we were above the Lcst. We had to add the organic solvent to make the Lcst higher. But then the polymerization was not really green. It was, let's say, greener than the original ones, but it wasn't really green. Now we are in the organic solvent-free state with these polymerizations. We don't need the, well, I should be careful with this system. We still need, I think, some organic solvent. But I have shown you the system of polystyrene with a PAPU. And that was completely without organic solvent, just by photo raft.
In fact, I was about to ask you when we have, for example, this kind of Lcst, UCST, once you polymerize your polymer to be, for example, Lcst, the next step is the block for the UCST. Now, the condition becomes sophisticated, right? Because the temperature range is narrower for the reaction.
Yeah, but the temperature where the thing is soluble is perfectly fine for a photo-initiated raft. I mean, so if you're in a range of around 60 degrees, that's okay. I mean, there are people who say, okay, if you do photo raft, you don't need temperature. No, this is, of course, not true. I mean, there is no reaction going without any temperature. Always when you have metal, it has a temperature, right? So temperature-free photo raft is not existing. So you need a certain temperature, obviously, but the temperature needs not to be as high as in a, let's say, in a polymerization where we do the thermal initiation, because the thermal initiation usually requires a higher temperature.
Right.
Yeah, but the polymerization itself can be done in principle at a slightly lower temperature.
มีครับคำถามจากทางบ้านมีไหมผมไม่แน่ใจผมเห็นไม่ถูก Well, there's some technical term that I'm not get used to, whether it's English or it's German, like Hofmeister Series.
Hofmeister is it's a German name. So Meister is master and Hof. Well, okay, I don't want to translate that. I mean, it's nothing ugly. It's just that I don't know what it means.
The salt, or something like that. Huh? The salt, the Hof.
Yeah, Hofmeister Series is this effect of the salt. Hofmeister found this effect of different salts having different effect on the solubility. Yeah, in colloids.
And also the cosmotropes and calotropes.
Yeah.
That's also German or English?
No, that's Greek. Cosmos, from cosmos and chaos and cosmos, these are Greek words.
Greek.
Yeah.
I'm not get used to the spelling. That's KOS.
Okay. Yeah, we write it with a K, but maybe in English you would write it with a C.
Yeah.
Could be. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it's good. And you need to learn more. Yeah. Any question from this?
I have a question. You mentioned that the hydrolysis of polymethylamide made the UCST disappear.
Oh, I didn't get that. Sorry.
You mentioned that the hydrolysis made the polymethylamide disappear, and then later on you make a co-polymerization of the methylamide and the Lcst. So what about the hydrolysis effect on that Lcst and UCST?
Yeah, there is this. That's what I mentioned, that Shin Kong started the work before we knew that there's this hydrolysis problem with a homopolymer. So he already had these things. So these things, what you see here, is not what we are going on to work much more, because eventually our UCST is gone when we do the switching of temperature often. And the point is, you are not allowed to go to high temperature. The higher the temperature of the Lcst, the more hydrolysis you get of the UCST block. So at a high temperature, it simply doesn't survive. So if we have an LCST which is as low as possible, of course still above the UCST of the methacrylamide polymer, then we have more stability. But still, it's not really good, and we want to replace the methacrylamide with another monomer. We are working on now to get more stability, also for the networks. So this will be then different system. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Oh, yes, yes, sure. And I have another question. So what is the temperature that makes the polymethacrylamide hydrolysis? What is the temperature?
Well, we found the temperature is, well, that was in this other slide. I think it was heated up to 70 degrees. No? Yeah, Tillman went up to 70 degrees. And then, okay, if you leave, I should say, you leave the system for quite some time. So 3 days, and then you see this effect. If you are short at a high temperature, you will not see much effect. It's a question of time, but still, I mean, 3 days at 70 degrees, you can say that's too long, but maybe you need it for certain application. We want to have something what is more robust. So we want to have something what can survive 70 degrees for a longer time. Yeah, if possible.
Thank you.
But for example, is there any trick to maintain or to prevent the hydrolysis, like adding salt or make the system to be not that much sensitive to water?
I think pH has a certain influence on the, because it's a hydrolytic reaction. Salt, I'm not so sure what the effect of salt could be here, whether it stabilizes or not. I don't know. Yeah.
There's some question from the online about the yield of the polymerization.
Yeah.
Can you share with us the
approximate
yield?
That's good, because you know numbers is not so much what is in my head usually, but we can in some of the polymerizations we can really go to very high conversions. So meaning that in the PISA process, for example, we can go up to more than 90% conversion. And so there is not so much issue anymore with leftover monomer. Yeah, in the rough polymerization. And in the annual polymerization, of course, you can go for the full conversion. If you then continue your process rapidly before you get, let's say, depolymerization and molecular weight broadening due to that. Yeah.
ได้ไหมครับคำถามจากทางด้านยิวก็ conversion ประมาณ 90% approximate มีคำถามเพิ่มไหมครับไม่มีรู้สึกเวลาใกล้แล้วนะครับเราก็กำหนดไว้ประมาณพอดี11:15 so I think the time is coming but we learned a lot from your presentation so the audience from the online and from the on-site please join me show the appreciation to Professor Dr. Volker Abetz. Thank you very much for sharing with us the frontier of natural rubber as a sustainable green polymer. So please join me. Welcome, Dr. Banja.
Dr. Suwabun, you know how to find a job for me. Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, I would like to start why innovation will get involved in natural rubber. Actually, innovation has been growing 35, 36 years in the area of synthetic rubber. I have been trained by DuPont, so most of my technical background were on synthetic rubbers and polymers. And since Dr. Suwabun, he tried to find me a job, he said, but Chatu, you have plenty of time, you should be heading the Rubber Association, division of Rubber Polymer Association of Thailand. Since then, I start to look at the technology and the industries of rubbers. I found that, we have many good, very strong points in rubber, but when you're talking about rubber, nobody know about Thailand. Everybody talk about Malaysia, India. I feel very bad because Indonesia, we have very strong research in rubbers for a while, and we have very big rubber compounding. We have manufacturing rubber for a while, but all this technology, why we never capture it, and the researchers, they're doing the research, why industry still needs some support from industry, how we link between the academic sector and the industrial sector to grow Thailand as, I would like to name it as #1, rubber in technology and major rubber and in industrial side, the biggest, the strongest in Asia. So we arranged a seminar how to make Thailand become the #1, and we have about 100 people from academic side, from industrial side, from business institute side get together. We try to run the workshop with the big point why Thailand cannot be #1. Okay, we have all the professors. You look at all the professors. We are very good professors. We have very good professors from various big name institutes around the world and gathering in many universities. But we never get all these things done. And we have a technical directors from Rubber Authority of Thailand working to my side said, we're going to ask you to help us in nature rubber, because we have a lot of problems produce nature rubber. So that's why innovation jump in, went down to the cooperative who produce nature rubber, and we found that wow, there are plenty of things we have to do. Okay, so we start that one. Years pass by, we still reading. Our rubber is division. We drive ourselves with #1 in West area. And when Dr. Suwabun talked to me, he would like me to support this seminar. So he said, hey, we found one thing about the green polymers of nature rubber. It's very interesting. It will change nature rubbers. Okay, both demand and in the other side is a painful development of nature rubber. That's why I wanted to give this presentation. Okay, first of all, I would like to start. I'm gonna move. Actually, I will talk about 4 subjects. One, let you know about innovation group, what we are doing, and we talk about global warming and the green polymers and how nature rubber have been developed. I would like to say that have been developed in innovation group. Okay, very interesting. But most of this one. Actually, my side said, hey, that's our confidential. Okay, but we're going to talk about this a little bit. Okay, we have been doing all this nature rubber and have been doing the development and have been success in many areas. Okay, actually, my side said, hey, that. So, but anyhow, I'm going to open up. Okay, we start with innovation group in natural rubber. Before we go to innovation, you know, as in the head of the rubber division of Polymer Association of Thailand, we set up our vision, and this is what we have going on. We have been working this for 3 years. I believe that we have to drive to the success. We want to be the being the excellence center of natural rubber related to science, technology, and the innovation for the Thai natural rubber community through the collaboration between the academics, institute, and industry to guide the future directions and empower the competitiveness to the world-class recognition. Okay, that's our vision of rubber division, that we like to make the things happen. Okay, next slide. What is innovation group? Innovation group is a group of company. You know, it start in 37 years ago when I like to bring my daughter back from Hong Kong to Thailand. So I lived DuPont. We started with a very small business, just only 3 people, my wife and me and 1 secretary. Okay, 35 years. Now we have 14 companies. In Thailand, we have 7 factories. In Vietnam, we have 1. Okay, we have 2 research center, and next year we're going to set up the other research center we call Green Technology Research Center, and we will need a lot of help from Dr. Suwabun. You know, we going to drive for green technology. Our products, we look at it, we already ship our products to 32 countries around the world. So actually, we believe we are very well known in many countries, but mainly in the industrial sector. Okay. What innovation? Innovation, we are a group of company. I started trading, very small trading, and people coming in and say, hey, Banja, why don't you handle our products? No need for me to train you. So we start to, as a trading company, we handling, now we're handling quite a lot of polymers, chemistry, special chemicals, and all these kind of things. We also have a legal service provided to the public as well. Okay, we have a logistic ourselves because we have product in and out. And we set up one thing, we set up Innovation Academy. We provide summer camp training for students for over 18 years. At the summertime, students come over here, we give them a training about 3 months, about polymers, rubbers, about almost 20 students. We provide accommodation, we provide everything. And after 3 months, we send it back on the 4th year student. Now, quite a lot of students become the professors here and there. Okay, and we will continue that one. And we are thinking more. Okay, we would like to be an academic center for more on bioplastic, green technology. This is what the center we are going to set up. So the other is we have manufacturing, we have rubber compounding. Beside of the tires, who have a big compound facilities. Innovation, we are the #1 largest in Asia in rubber compounding. Okay, with the various size of compounding facilities with many technologies, and we are products shipping around the world. We have plastic compounding, which we are going to move from normal rubber plastic compounding. We move to recyclable, we move to BCG, we move to all these products. We have our own research and provide to customer make special compound. Now we move to bioplastic. Okay, so this is one of very strong points of innovation, rubber compounding, and we have finished products. We make many rubber parts, especially for automotive. We ship to many countries in Europe, US, and Middle East, Japan, and many countries. We talk about 32 countries. Okay. Since we could make part, we have to our mold. Also, we have joint venture with Japanese. So we build and we have a very strong levels mold technology. We have a designing group. We can have customer of product design, doing the simulation and design the mold and make part. And we have simulation program with them, make sample and everything. That's why we now in the EV car, we are very strong, move ahead with the Japanese company or the automotive part or the new next 2 or 3 years EV car. We already capture many part. We have been developing here. We have research center. Okay, we have designing. We have a designing group. Okay, get the product design, simulation, prototype. Okay, the final products after making, we have a final product performance testing. Make sure customer, in the application, our product serve the application. Okay, we have engineering, we have calibration center, we have engineering, designing, we have automotive and robotic. Our new production lines, we do all these things ourselves. Even the fully loading, automation, and everything. Okay, we just buying the mixer and roll mills. The others, we do it ourselves. Then, and we're going to provide to the public. We have fully feeding system. Okay, we capture all this technology. We have safety program, we have safety material, we have all these things, this innovation group. Okay, and the next one is Green Research Center. This is what we're going to set up next year. So, by conclusion, in plastic rubber, we are total solution from customers' requirement to material design, research, and then we can make more ourselves, make product ourselves, prototype, and compound, supply, and finish products. Walking in, that's why customer come in. We like customer bring your requirement, okay, and work with the headquarters of many international company. Start from the beginning for product design, formulation design, until finished products, and performance testing and everything, totally including all in this innovation group. We are the supporting plastic compounding that coming very strongly. We have polymer supplier, the one that why we are very strong, because we know all the new polymers. We know all the special chemical coming in. Bioplastic, without all the chemicals, you're going to make bioplastic as a very good compound. That's our strong point. We get all the supply of chemicals. Our chemist and companies over there, he lead the group doing all this research and sourcing all the chemicals. We are designing, robotic, engineering, all including our innovation group. Okay? So we are not really doing academic research. We're doing application, many applications, research, serving customers in the industry. So we would like to introduce why innovation group go into natural rubber?
สวัสดีค่ะ Good afternoon, our audience, and thanks to host of this session. As this is a video, so I think the honorable host will have already introduced me. And I have only 20 minutes, so we try managing my time. The title of my presentation today is Innovation in Natural Rubber to Serve Global Market. The topics are introduction, where I will show some information of natural rubber situation and why innovation group comes into natural rubber's area. Then what development programs that we have been doing with our 4 programs. After that, I would like to share about factor affecting when we run research and try pushing it into market, and the last is summary. Okay, let's start with introduction. Natural rubber situation. I think you all know that Thailand is the largest natural rubber producer. About 34% of global supply are from Thailand. And from left-hand side of the slide show the world production capacity, consumption, and world end stock since year 2010 to 2018 and forecast of year 2019. We can see the oversupply of natural rubber in year 2012, 2013, and it seemed to balance in 2014, 15, and 16. Anyway, it started oversupply again in 2017, 18, and 19. And in 2019, Thailand production capacity of natural rubber was about 4.74 million tons, about 0.77 million tons for domestic and 4 million tons for export, and total stock was 83 million tons with quite a lot of stock. The oversupply happened like that. How about the price? If we look at the right-hand side, the price of natural rubber, in this case we look at RSS number 3, price refer to Hat Yai market. We could see that it jumped up to 190 baht per kg in February 2011, and after that year it went down to 50 to 55 baht per kg in year 2017, and last month it jumped again, went down again to 43 to 45 baht per kg regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Why? What happened? Why the price went up and then sharply went down like that? One of the reasons is about the natural rubber plantation in the world increased. Like in year 2011, the production of natural rubber come out at 11.23 million tons. Why? In year 2018, it came out at 13.88 million tons, which is about 2 million tons in the market. The production increased, but the consume decreased, especially China, who is the biggest consumer of natural rubber. They have the problems of economic slowdown, which affect about the consume of natural rubber. And some quantity of natural rubber were replaced by synthetic rubber. And in Thailand, in the year 2011, the price jumped like this because we have the first Co-Polymerization in September. Starting in September 2011, which can boost demand and price of natural rubber in the country. And in this year, we have problems about the flooding in the south of Thailand that also made the price of natural rubber went up so high. When the first Co-Polymerization finished with this in December 2012, market went back to the real demand. The price was going down. So now natural rubber is in quite tough situation. Okay, and then next slide, innovation group to natural rubber. Innovation group business relate to chemicals, polymers like rubber, plastic, special chemicals and products. We use almost all kinds of rubbers in compounding and rubber part factory. including natural rubber, but only 10 to 15% of natural rubber is using in our group. Others are synthetic rubber. As most of our rubber compounds and parts, we are doing for automotive industry and other industry that mostly like heat, ozone, and oil resistant, which natural rubber cannot serve the requirement. Innovation group, we were just a user of natural rubber. We have experience in synthetic rubber both in market and product development. We did not touch much in the area of natural rubber until our CEO, Dr. Banja Junhasavasdikul, who had other functions, not only CEO of Innovation Group. He is also a lecturer in Chulalongkorn University, and another function is the president of Rubber Division of Polymer Societies of Thailand. He would like to support and promote rubber in Thailand. Then he and the Polymer Societies of Thailand has set up a seminar in the topics of Thailand to be rubber hub in Asia. At the event, people from private sectors and government sectors joined the discussion on how to let Thailand be the rubber hub in Asia. And at the event, Kun Prem Thassanakul, Director of Rubber Testing Service and Certificate Center, Southern Region of Thailand Southern Region of Rubber Authority of Thailand, joined the event and discussed her program on educating rubber farmer about GAP, good agricultural practice, and GMP, good manufacturing practice. Start from plantation to rubber sheet manufacturing and have product called RSSP, Red Smoke Sheet Premium, and would like to promote the RSSP to the market. Kun Prem did ask Dr. Banja to support this project, and Dr. Banja see the values of the program, then agreed to support the project and using tax privilege support of BOI. And this picture is the ceremony between PR Industry and Cooperative in Trang and Nakhon Si Thammarat during we signed MOU development in July 2019 last year. And this is the delivery packing line to Cooperative in March 2020 this year. Okay, these are our development program. The purpose of the program is to increase competitiveness of Thailand natural rubber in the global market. Then we set up for development program with our first one, market research and development. Second, quality and innovation product development. Third, natural rubber packing development and inventory management. And fourth, natural rubber trade, natural rubber packing software development. Let's start with the first one, the market research. We study about natural rubber cost, price, and supply history and trend, end user and exporter, supply chain, and transportation route. As I mentioned before, Innovation Group, we mostly in the synthetic rubber area, not in the natural rubber area. It's quite new for us, so we need to understand it. And frankly speaking, from my own opinions, I think that natural rubber supply chain and many marketing is quite more complicated than synthetic rubbers that we are in. And next is about customer research and approaching. We would like to know what the customer need. If they can choose the natural rubber, what natural rubber that they would like to use, they would like to see. We also ask ourselves, because we are one of the users, and we would like to know about the trend of the development of rubber. Also, how natural rubber can go with such development. We did ask ourselves, we did ask customers in Thailand. We went to Japan and talked to rubber users in India. There are some feedback, but I have only less than 10 minutes, about 10 minutes left, so I could not go in detail. But I would say that there are good news and bad news. of Thailand natural rubber. Okay, next slide. Natural rubber market trend. We also would like to know the world trend of natural rubber. In year 2018, the organization called GPSNR, Global Platform of Sustainable Natural Rubber, had set up, and key global Thai manufacturers are members of this organization. Their mission is to lead improvement in the socio-economics and environmental performance of the natural rubber value chain. They have 12 principles like forest sustainability, land right, human right, and traceability. You can read that principle from the website. We fly to Singapore and met with the directors of the organization in February 2020 this year. Of course, before COVID-19 seriously spread out, we discussed with the directors about what GPSNR is going to do and how they are working with the member, what trend and their activity. So we got some idea from them. Okay. After research, we got information, and then next is the product development. As we would like to support GAP and GMP programs of Kun Puriprem, so we did study about GAP and GMP and RSP. These are some control working steps of GAP and GMP by Kun Puriprem. Like GAP is about tapping time, it's about cleaning up of the cup, filtrate the latex, and the time delivery the fresh latex to the factory. And for GMP, it's about the cleanness of the containers, the acid using, the chemical using. Chemical amine is a type of acid. They allow only formic acid to be used for RSP, no hazardous chemical. If rubber farmers follow the procedures of GAP and GMP, they will get RSP products coming out. Normally, RS number 3 have no specification control like STR, but for RSP, there are specification control. If we look in this table, we could see that percentage of dirt, ash, nitrogen, volatile metals, they are even lower than STR5L, and they have better control properties of PO, PRI, and MUNI. Like MUNI in the slide, we did check RSP of 5 cooperatives who signed MOU and working with us. Many of their RSP for 6 months are low variation to normal RSS number 3. And 2 cooperatives can control their MUNI increasing in the range of not over 5 units without any extra chemical, only controlled by GAP and GMP. While you look at the commercial RSS 3, number 3, you see that more variations of the MUNI. Okay, and this slide is about we study the variation on 6 properties of RSP in different seasons. These samples are from Trang province and from 2 cooperatives. Actually, number of samples and numbers of cooperatives still are not enough, but we would like to see the trend so we can improve qualities of them. We can see that percentage of dirt and ash are over spec around 3rd and 4th quarter within raining season. So we are suspect about the cleanliness of the cup, and others also have variation, but not show the trend much like dirt and ash. Anyway, we can see that they are not all in spec all the time. So next step, this year, we are going to co-work with Kun Puriprem from Rubber Authority of Thailand to control all of this property to be in spec for our lot of production. Okay, Next, this is about innovation, natural rubber development. As natural rubber is not produced only RSS, so we look into other products of natural rubber too, like NR latex, ADS, STR. So we run development in those products too. Innovation, natural rubber development, this is a program that we are working on. The first one, green natural rubber latex, regarding environmental friendly trend of the world, and actually for safety of people who always have to deal with ammonia. Then we run this program using other chemicals to replace ammonia. We are developing it with a customer in petrochemical area in plastic modification application. It is under evaluations of the products and adjust the latex property. The second program is RSSP, Muni control without adding any chemicals, like chemical that using in CV rubber, constant viscosity rubber. This one is like in the previous slide. We would like to control constant Muni by using GAP and GMP using physical method. And the third project is low smell STR. When we did market survey with customers, some customers request this property because some of their factories are near residential area. Sometimes they have problems about the smell, so they request to us. Then we develop this program, and this one are in the pilot scale, preparing sample for customer trial. We have to manage smells in the plantation. Next program is packing and warehouse design and management. As natural rubber itself, this case RSS, packing, keeping time, and condition of keeping affect properties, like their tentative to have Muni increasing that we call storage hardening, and stickiness when exposed to air, and if cover it with calcium carbonate or anti-boggling. Rubber user need to manage it. Like in our factory, actually we don't allow to use the white powder coating in our rubber compounding factory because it's messed up and we are aware of the contamination. Then in this program, we design the packing for user like us and other customer, and why we let cooperative be able to do it. So we design the packing and design the packing line and set up the central warehouse because the cooperative that have MOU with us, they don't have the central warehouse, they don't have the packing line. So we supporting them on this one. We select the locations of the central warehouse, try to balance about the cost of transportation and the location that not too far from the port for the future when we would like to export their product. And the packing line, we have cannot say many. We have several designs, and finally we pick up this one, the compact one. We select this one because we would like to have the practical, flexible, and not too expensive packing line. Because we think if this project successful, it can be expanded to others warehouse. And we had already delivered this packing line to the warehouse, to the cooperative in March this year in Trang. And we also discussed with the cooperatives about the cost, warehouse cost management. We discuss and talk to them about the fixed cost, variable cost, and how to run the warehouse cost. Because the farmer and the cooperative have to run this warehouse by themselves, we would like this warehouse can be survive, okay? And next program is the NR track and NR packing software. Like I tell you that we went to Japan, we talked to customer, we went to Singapore, we talked to TP SNR, and they told us about traceability system. In the future, they plan that they would like to run this program. That's why we asked our ICT team to write a software program which called NR Track and NR Packing. This program will be used for quality control in the production and also can use traceback since the plantation, cooperative manufacturing, and central warehouse. Customers who buy the natural rubber ISSP can trace back where is the plantation and how about the conditions of that rubber. This program had trained to the rubber farmer, the cooperatives already, and they can use it. Now we are waiting for next production and the requirement from the market. Once they need this traceability, we are ready. Okay. And next is about the factor affecting company research to market products. When company would like to run the research and get product come out into market, there are factors involving not only capability and facilities of R&D team. We need to understand market trend, market need, market size, market conditions like ideal acceptable price, processing condition. If not, it's quite difficult to commercialize products into market, or it will take a long time. However, for very high technology, it may be quite difficult to have such idea. But for short-term and medium-term project, we should have the idea. Next factor is about the integration and cooperations among team. From this program, you see that there were many departments join or support this program, not only R&D, even outside organization supporting like BOI, Laboratory of Thailand, and cooperative. And the last factor, which is quite important, is about sales and marketing, where and whom products should offer to, especially this program. And natural rubber is very commodity products, where they can sell value of Thailand natural rubber to invest in the next something era. It's challenge. Okay, in summary, we have been running this program about 9 months and still have many things to continue. Innovation meaning in our aspect is not only innovation technical product development. Other areas of innovation development like process development, system development, and even new ways of market approach are also innovation for us. Product from research going to be commercial into market, we need to integrate skills and expertise of people from different areas. Like this project, not only R&D, engineer, sales and marketing, BOI team, production, QA, QC involving in this program. Even we are in different departments, but we have same goal. Especially in this program. Within this program is one of the programs that we would like to contribute back to social, to country, and to the world, and we will do our best. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณค่ะ
Okay, so I bring you back to what a new topic, but still in the same subject of natural rubber. Okay, we're going to start with global warming. You know, everybody know about the wording of global warming. I give a very small talking about global warming. Since the Industrial Revolution, human activities have been the main drivers of climate change, mainly because of the burning of fossil fuels and causing the rising of temperature and disasters that happen frequently around the world. That's the effect of global warming, and that global warming happened because of human, we created it up. Okay, what next we have to do? You know, it was agreed at Paris Agreement in 2015 to keep the global warming under 2 degrees Celsius rising. Okay, but at that moment until just last year, China, who was the largest biggest emitter of carbon dioxide, never responds. And they are responsible for 1/3 of the world total emission. Just this year, President Xi now this year said that China will support IPCC agreement and will control the country emission under 1.5 degrees Celsius rising. That's very exciting. If China mentioned about control of the carbon dioxide emission and will to keep it at his country about 1.5 degrees Celsius and agree upon with IPCC agreement, and China start and set the zero quantity of carbon dioxide emission at 0 by 2060. That's really a challenge for China. Okay, so in this year, start from this year, you see China start to reduce the carbon dioxide gas emission at the country. He emphasized on energy sector, which mainly generate from coal. China start to control the using of coal fuel in the energy since the early of the year. That caused the shortage of energy in this country and the shortage of products that consume high energy. So, you know, for us in the petrochemicals, we start to feel the products making in China, especially international company, DuPont, Dow, and they start to have the shortage of, they have sold out the production because of energy supply. Okay, price of products from China this year rising up very quickly. Okay, and China announced to set carbon emission and carbon credit to each country. When you talk about carbon emission control, first thing, the government have to set the carbon credit at every company. So the company who produce product in China, you have a certain of carbon credit. And if you emit more of carbon, you have to buy carbon credit from the people who emit less carbon. So carbon credit become products to be traded. That's why, that's the reasons. Early, since last year, we start to have many companies start to approach us and start to look at natural rubber. Okay? Now, the people start to be aware that carbon credit is becoming one of the control that the government will start to control, and carbon credit if used some products that over the carbon credit, you have to buy carbon credit from other company. So the cost of production in metal, refinery, steel industry, petrochemical, will increase and especially the aviation industries. And this also affects to the supply of petrochemical products in the future. So it creates a big opportunities for agricultural product for Thailand, especially on tapioca, okay, and nature rubber. That's what we feel. The people, international company, the people start to come to innovation. We start to work on nature rubber to replace some of the synthetic rubber. Okay, because people start to look at green polymers, how the carbon credit work out. Going green is a trend, and nature rubbers is becoming a sustainable green polymers. This is what we will talk. This is what we're talking today. So you look at nature rubber. I have 2 books I will mention that nature rubber is a miracle material. Okay, it's sustainable. It is a source of renewable features. We're talking about biodegradable, unbelievable. We found that the composition of nature rubber is much faster than the synthetic rubbers, and it reduces carbon footprint of greenhouse gas effect emission. Latex is a source of natural sources. It's obtained from rubber tree, and natural rubber latex is no content of chemical and heavy metals. Is unique properties. Natural rubber have unique property. You look at it. Why around the world total consumption of natural rubber and synthetic rubber? Why natural rubbers? The consumption is 43% of total rubber consumption. People never look at it, but I said because of unique property of nature rubber. If you look at it and you use it as a key point for development, you develop a lot of new innovative products from nature rubber. Next. We look at the carbon footprint, how people work on carbon footprint. And actually, I think the people who start to work on products, you can go and work on yourself. But I just give an example how the carbon footprint work out. The carbon footprint, you have to look at the complete life cycle assessment of carbon emission. Okay, look at start from raw material, manufacturing, distribution, usage, landfill, and all this one. You have to look at the whole complete life cycle assessment of the products to see how carbon emission coming out. Nature rubber, you start with rubber tree. From the rubber tree, you make the fresh nature latex. From nature latex, you have to make concentrate latex and make rubber products, rubber gloves. I take the example because I like to look at the rubber gloves. We have been talking in the research group of Nature of Rubber Authority of Thailand. What our professors is placing, how can we make nature rubber become a unique product and being able to compete with the synthetic rubber. But people don't look at it. What's the value of nature rubber? Let me lead you to look at it. Okay, the second page. When we work on the carbon footprint, we have to start with rubber plantation. So we look at the fuels we use in the rubber plantation, the fertilizer, and we have to make the fresh latex. Okay, if we go to work out the carbon footprint, we have to have the data and record, but this is how people have to working on. Okay, so when you have the fresh latex come into the concentrate latex baking, you have to look at the transportation. You have to make the fill on the fill latex tank. You have to use electricity. You have to use ammonia to make the concentration, latex concentration of 60%. So all these factors you have to sum it out, and when you transport to the glove factory, you have the concentration of latex tank, you have the water, chemical, and wastewater coming out, chemical energy and energy using make a compound, you have energy in the big tank, you have energy and water using for blending, vulcanizing, and packing, and all this all put together. And you have to calculate how much energy you use and carbon dioxide emission. Okay, that's the number. So you look at all this one, carbon footprint, or we call CF, CO, equal activity multiplied by emission factor, like the sources we use diesel, how many quantity of diesel, emission factor is 0.429, and you have the calculation and how many carbon footprint coming out from the diesel we use. From the fertilizer, urea, you have also doing the same thing, how many quantity you use, and for the kilos of latex, and come out with the emission factor of 3.2826, and you have the calculation how many quantity and carbon with carbon footprint. This every step you have to doing the calculation and keep the data recording. If we go to apply this carbon footprint in every sector of industry. Okay, next. So we look at the glove industries. This from the basic calculation, we found that average gas emission from the fresh latex was about 0.9295 carbon dioxide equivalent per kilo. And just look at the other one is making the latex. From fresh latex, you have to make the latex, okay, concentration latex. We come out with the average of get emissions of nitrogen compared with natural rubber. We come out with the natural latex as 0.291 carbon equivalent per kilo. While the natural latex come from the petrochemicals, they have the figures. They have figures calculate coming out 1.59 carbon dioxide equivalent per kilo. And after that, you go to the manufacturing of gloves, and you have a carbon emission coming out as glove per pair is 0.014 carbon equivalent per kilo. And then you come out with the total gas, in-house gas emission of one pair of gloves come out with 0.4 carbon dioxide equivalent per kilo. You look at the number between nitrile rubber and carbon and natural rubber latex. Just look at the number at the top of the right-hand side. You see natural rubbers have a lot of advantage. Okay, if we go to promote this greenhouse effect, greenhouse emission to the customers, to the marketplace, we use the number. You see the people start to open this side and look at the natural rubber latex as a curve, right? The way big difference, and the carbon credit will tell the people this is what you have to go. Okay, second page, the other next page. And really is a green products from naturally abundant and renewable carbon and polymers, and can be biodegradable. You look at the picture on the right hand side, you see natural rubber latex after put into the soil. You know, after 4 weeks, you see it start to be degradable. And you look at nature, you look at NBR, the synthetic rubber latex, which mainly used in the glove industry. You see, you don't have the sign of decompose. Okay, if we look at these 2 points, carbon credit and decomposable, biodegradable, you know, why don't they use these 2 points to sell the value of natural rubber glove latex? Okay, next. You know, very simple, but never people pick it up. And we let the synthetic rubber come and replace natural rubber in the glove industry. And now we are at the corner. We are at the corner. People need to look at it. And people talking about one more thing. Natural rubber, we have protein allergy, we cannot do it. And all the professors look at latex, natural latex, and have to get rid of the protein from the latex. We have to realize protein is the one as the activator for crosslinking of the natural rubber latex. If you take it out, the crosslinking density is very low and they will meet the requirement. Now, what people just look at one point, to look at the end products of the total blue. You can do many things. Instead, get rid of protein. The protein is very important for cross-linking in the natural rubber. Okay, so we believe innovation, we have all the solution. We have the solution. Okay, look at very scientific. Okay, look at it, the structure of polymers. I was teaching my students. When you look at it, go back to the basic. What means the go back to basic? Start with the structure of polymers and the composition of it. When you look at it, you know what the end product will be. Okay? You look back to this one. We believe we have the answer to develop natural rubbers as a main product using in the glove industry, which we are struggling for how many years. People never look back to the basic. Okay, as I mentioned, natural rubber have a unique properties. Why it remains 33% of total rubber using around the world. Okay, and that's what innovation we look at. We do many development on it. Please. Okay, green is a trend, right? So eco-friendly balloon. You look at it. Many people make the cups container for agricultural. People using oils, the natural rubber as oils and many things. Look at as a renewable and recycled products, right? So I would say go back to the basic. Natural rubber, we have big point. You look at it, we have this advantage. It's very weak in weathering, very poor in aging. We have aging hardening. You keep natural rubber, it become very hard. Okay, you have problem about oil resistance of natural rubber. You have inflammables. Okay, but people never look at one thing. Natural rubber have very strong property is strain, reduce crystallization. That's why people have to use natural rubber in the tires industry. Why people don't look at it? That's a unique property of natural rubber. It makes its excellent green strength. It makes an excellent tensile strength. It makes it a very good building track, tear resistant, low heat build up, and cut resistant. All these property other polymers don't have. You look at it. This, and if you overcome the weak point and promote the strong point, this is the natural rubber we have to develop. That's why I always say to our group, no, rubber division have to be #1 in natural rubber technology and innovation. But people will look at the basic, back to the basic. This is what I teach my students. If you look at back to the basic, and then what we do, next. Why? Okay. That's why I mentioned why natural rubber is still at 40% of total rubber consumption in the world. We can move it up. Okay, with the high cost of petrochemical products, with the green, the carbon credit, the people will, it become very expensive, more expensive. Why natural rubber is, we plant more, trap it more, and make our the agricultural and our basic natural rubber manufacturing make the products specifies, tailored to every sector of industry is specific requirement they want. We can see the number move up to 50. Okay, our development. Green products, it become a renewable source. The first, many toys international brand name come to us, and many products have been developed. It has been developed, but the strong point of innovation group, we have designing group. We help customer in products design, functional design, and we doing the formulation design. We doing the pilot products for customer to test. And many design, you see the track. When you put the car running an electric car, at the corner it flap over. So we have to design all the. So we have very strong in products design, engineering design, and we have to make the products at testing. That's why we many products coming out. The people promote it because it's safe, it's toxic free, it's beautiful, very products. They make it because of brand image. Okay, the other one. We have many customers start to come to us. Natural rubber is not been weathering. It told us how many percentage of natural rubber can replace EPDM. They still need EPDM, but they want carbon credit. They told us how many percentage of natural rubber can replace in EPDM in the products you're making for us. We do many products coming out. Okay, you see the new car that coming next year, we will have our products with natural rubber replacing synthetic rubber. We talk to people who are making the balls. They're using butyl rubber as a breaders. We said, hey, guys, you know, natural rubber have a very good bounce properties, much better than butyl. it has been success in 2 types of products using the blenders replacing butyl rubber. Okay, so we also doing with customer when we blend it, we have to test many kind of property. We use our lab, our research lab, we use many testing e-commerce and help customers, so we develop many products coming out in the marketplace. Next. Flammable. Every polymer is flammable besides only CR, chlorine. Okay? Blend with chlorine. Blending is very good method, very simple. You blend with chlorine will help in natural rubber. When you burn chlorine, there are chlorine coming out, the chlorine stop the frame. Okay, you can add flammable material, retardants, and all this one. Next. Oil resistance. You have many rubber polymers that can help, especially natural rubber blend with NBR, and we found that it's very good. It's not excellent oil resistant, but give a medium properties of oil resistant. You can use in some others, not very critical for oil resistant. You blend with chlorine, you help in the chemical resistant. Blending, polymer blending, chemical helping. This how we working. But you have to go back to the basic of every polymer. That's why I always said in the university you must know every type of polymers. If you know only natural rubber, you never be able to develop natural rubbers. You have to blend it. You must know every chemicals. Okay, next. People talk about TPV, thermoplastic vulcanization. It has been developed and have been using in the marketplace. Okay, we have been developed the TPV in our own factory. We have our own plant. Okay, so why don't we making TPV from natural rubber to replace every day? We come out with the products. We start to commercialize. Okay, TPV is recyclable, rechange, reuse, and making TPV. Many people try to do it, but we already in the marketplace. It's processed like plastic, eco-friendly material, recyclable, renewables. We using 50% of natural rubber make TPV. Okay, we have many product testing. It's very good, durable, with the shape retention, and have resistant to outdoor weathering. It's recyclable and using the plastics processing equipment. Okay. So the other big project, but I was asked to develop, to work with. We have University of Okayama University. We give them the results of MTech. Our researcher in MTech, Dr. Suwabun, give me a talk about using natural rubber latex to improve the soil, hardening of the soil. So we working on how to spray it, how to make it really in a scientific way. And it happened, we talked to the Japanese university and they love it. So we just finished the talking. They asked the budget from government and they would like to work with us using natural rubber latex to improve the soil. They look at the soil hardening, soil erosion. Okay, so this is a program we have to carry on with the Okayama University, with MTech, with innovation. This project have to be last at least 3-4 years. So we will come out some answer for soil hardening and soil erosion. Okay, so you look at the major rubber. Look at it. I believe we still can develop many applications. Okay, but people have to go back to the basic of knowledge of nature rubber. And innovation group, we are in the frontier, as you saw of nature rubber. You saw what Jutala talking about, and Panisara, she just came back from the co-op. We visit many co-ops, and everybody like us to do a lot of development with them, especially now nature rubber without strong smell. Okay, nature latex without ammonia, and many other things that we are working with the co-op. We split the co-op out, and every co-op we have project with them, and we got to bring them into the marketplace. Okay, innovation, we are strong in marketing. That's why we will bring the creation and requirement from the marketplace into our development, and they make the R&D become very short, and we will be successful. Thank you for your attention. Any questions?
Okay, a very inspiring talk and informative about natural rubber. Something like the old wine in the new bottle. I mean, this we can revisit it and see how opportunity of natural rubber, not only for the material but for Thai community also. I think there's some question from the online. Okay, so now it's time for the discussion. Yes, Mr. Volker.
Yeah, thank you very much for this interesting overview. I have a question concerning the blend. So you talked about natural rubber EPDM blend. Now, I mean, is natural rubber, is polyisoprene visible with EPDM, or is it a two-phase blend and it's a question of processing that you get finally a nice material? I mean, is it? I would expect that they are not really visible in terms of Laudabach theory or something like that.
We at the beginning, I believe, from my belief, I believe that in static site, nature rubber, it will degrade if polymer itself alone. Okay, if you blend any polymers in, okay, when it degrades from nature rubber, come to the layer of EPDM that will not degrade. Okay, and it will slow down the degradation of nature rubbers. It is in the static form. Okay, if in dynamic form, you cannot use this kind of blending. So we start work in the lab. We have the problem if you don't have a very good mixing machine. So polymer blend between, I don't see any much problem in blending neoprene, EPDM with nature rubber. We can blend up to about 40 parts of EPDM without any problem. The major problem is how to have the cross-linking system, okay, to go around with these two polymers. The most difficult is blending EPDM, nature rubber with copolymers. Very, one is very polar, one is not very polar. So we have a problem with blending that one. But with our compounding technology, we can do it. Okay, the sequence of mixing and all this kind of thing. We have homogenizer. We always very good in using the homogenizer. The homogenizer we put one side of polymers and react with one side, and the other side react with the other side. So homogenizer is very important. Okay, and if you blend homogenizer using homogenizer about 2 to 4 parts, you solve most of this problem.
So you mean the compatibilizer?
Yeah, we call homogenizer. Compatibilizer. One side is polar, one side is not. So we choosing the homogenizer. Look at the polymer. So we can select the different type of homogenizer. One side can react with the other one side react with one. Which this product is available from DuPont. Why DuPont making nylon and can make nylon super tough? Nylon super tough is been using nylon and blend with rubber. It's very difficult to blend it in. And DuPont have this technology. Okay, so we study it and we use the same technologies and we look at various kind of homogenizer, and now we are very good. We can blend any co-polymers to one part. So the technology with Europe and based on the DuPont super tough of nylon. They blend nylon with EPDM. So we use the same technology and we develop our compound. So we don't have any difficulty to blend any kind of polymers together.
Any other questions, comments, sharing experiences?
Could be very soon.
I'm very appreciate on your presentations, and it's a very truly in trend that we have to save our world and the climate change, especially for the COP21, as we know on Paris Agreement. One part of this, we used to talk about the sustainability plantation, that the sustainability plantations is applied for the rubber plantation also.
Yes.
Thailand also, especially for FSCs or PFCs as a certification house as international standard. And I think that this sustainability rubber plantation already is introduced in many areas of Thailand.
Yes.
I would like to get some share experience from you that you have already cooperated with many cooperatives.
Yes.
Are there any of these cooperatives achieved such a sustainability plantation certification yet?
So far, I think the Rubber Authority of Thailand, okay, as we could reframe, okay, they are promoting with the farmers, okay, how to plant it. We call good agricultural plantation, okay. So anyone who works with the Rubber Authority of Thailand is such and such. They teach you what type of rubber tree you should plant, what fertilizer, and how to trap it, and how to look after the plantation. Okay, actually, we believe that innovation, we are not very good in agricultural area. So we work with the Rubber Authority of Thailand, which they already have the hand and the good people looking on that one. But to qualify that one, we are also for the FSC and all this governing, we also work with a group of Rubber Authority of Thailand. And Dr. Banja of Songkhan Green is very good in promoting this area. So we try to work with them to see how these people working out. Okay, so we try to we call ต้นน้ำกลางน้ำ we try to avoid a little bit on the agricultural plantation, and we believe the Rubber Authority of Thailand that we are working with, they are very good and they are very intent on that one. Okay, so we look at how to form the tapping until finish of the rubber products. Okay, natural rubber coming out. What type of natural rubber? What specific properties we require? How they control? How they come out with the mainly rubber is mainly on the first contamination, control the properties, the hardness, and all the ash control and all this kind of thing. So we work from that point, from trapping until the market. Okay, very little experience go to the agricultural sector.
So it means that to combine to the global green rubber
Forest.
Green global rubber sustainability platforms. We need this portion.
Yes.
Combined with our development.
Yes.
From tapping, right?
Yes.
So if the governments, I mean the rubber authorities, did not go through the plan quite well, it will delay our competition on the global sustainability rubber platform.
Yes.
Is it right?
Right. Exactly.
Oh, okay. This is important.
What what really we are working. We believe that in Thailand, you talk about how many been rise of rubber plantation, okay, and many trading companies they buy the natural rubber as a commodity. It's very difficult for innovation. We get into this commodity area. We select the people we work with, which are the people they work with Rubber Authority of Thailand. Okay, every province they have a cooperative organization. Cooperative is what the farmer they form it up and make the rubbers, or the government support and all this kind of thing. So when we go in, Rubber Authority of Thailand is the one who already manage the plantation, trapping, fertilizer. You go in, you see, in every province they sell the fertilizer based on the testing quality of the soil. Okay, they have the soil testing every year and what kind of chemical they have to add in, and they blend the fertilizer and sell to the farmers. So we work with a group that the Rubber Authority of Thailand like to promote. We are not selling natural rubber, the whole country natural rubber. We help government to work on the groups of cooperative that work with the government So we can select this cooperative. You work with this one, you work with this one, you work with nature retake, you look at the low smell, you look at the Mooney constant. So we ask everyone to work on each type, and we bring the market to them. Okay, so this is what we are doing, innovation.
So it means that such a cooperative that you are working with, you can connect to the local authority to support for the sustainability plantation.
Yeah.
In, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This what we are doing.
Yeah.
This what the local authority of Thailand are working with the corporate. They have a selective. So actually, also the one of the directors in the research group of local authority of Thailand. So we work with them, and we not really target the whole country. Okay, but we believe one thing: we can work at it, and it will spread it out. This kind of technology will spread it out. But if you look at the whole country, no way we will success. If we select, we select the cooperative. We wait to see how people working, how really they intend to work with us. Because a lot of regulation, we will set it up. If we win there one time and next few months we win there, you never do it. We give you up. Okay, we go to the others. So work with that, and every local authority, every cooperative that we work with, the local authority people, they go with us. So we are really in the very good control. And we believe this one will up. We work on this one almost 1.5 years. And I believe if everything going good and the market coming to them, if we're doing a very good roadshow, we can promote a lot of products. Especially look at Europe. Europe, especially the footwear and all these people. And if Europe, they always look at FSC. If they have very good quality of nature rubber and with a certificate of FSC, that's why we want to work with them. And you will see a lot of customers will come in and talk to you, because we have a lot of requirement coming in from Europe. Can I have nature rubber with the FSC certificate? Okay, so this is what we are trying. We would like to specific country, marketplace, and products. This is what we're working on.
Thank you.
So in the future, we will see the innovation model for the natural rubber development.
We never in nature rubber, but we believe we can build a big quantity sustainable nature rubbers.
The platform is very important. The rubber ones, we have to get it.
Yes.
ครับขอบคุณครับ
Any questions, Kap?
Any question from the online? No. Maybe we can talk later after this presentation. Kun Banja is with us, and we will have lunch together.
We have lunch together.
So
please. Sorry for having a very late lunch.
Well, anyway, I think it's very precious moment to have two presentations this morning, and I think we enjoy more or less inspiring the new development in the future. So let me express my appreciation to Banja and Professor Dr. Volker Abetz again for this seminar, and I hope that sooner or later the rubber division still have more activity, comes more and more, and we will enjoy those. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Please join me show appreciation to Kun Banja.